We now have by audio link from Mexico one of Mexico's most prominent businessmen, Juan Gallardo, who will now take the floor in absentia. Mr. Gallardo, are you
Thank
with us?
you.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, and it is indeed a great privilege to share the with such a distinguished panel. And as was already said, the timing is impeccable, though the decision is still in process. So many of the things that we can comment at this point, as has already been said, are a certain amount of, I might call, sort of educated conjecture. But over the next 6 days, we'll see much more clarity. To understand sort of North American, and I mean the NAFTA world, I think I would like to divide it into three quick comments. One is a state on Mexico. Second would be a comment on the border and how it's operational, wall suspense, and finally, more importantly, go into the very distinctive piece of NAFTA and its future. In the case of the Mexico update, very briefly, very quickly, Mexico has undergone a massive transformation in the last 3 years. Reforms that we had been searching for and fighting for over the last 25 years have all been now put in place. Opening up of energy, labor law, a new education bill, telecommunications, etc. I mean, there has been a massive legal and structural change within the country, which of course will take time to for things to work themselves through the system, transform, but that are already setting stage for a future that I think is aligned with what all of us are interested in. A very interesting of this just in the next couple of weeks, when the final bids on deep drilling will be opened, and we'll have a chance to have a real sense of just how much interest we were able to attract. Mexican growth, reasonable, balanced budget, despite an significant oil drop. Mexico has undergone from being an oil economy, 3% of its interest, to down to 14%, and that was achieved in terms of balance by a new reform, which was a lot of costly. Anyway, basically good news on the financial side, good solid news. Where are the challenges? We have a great battle undergoing right now with major legal challenge in terms of corruption. We continue to have battles in terms of the drug wars, political positioning for the 2018 elections, and of course, the big challenge, transition in the U.S. Let me address the border situation. I'm sure many of you, but just to give you a sense of its size, 1 million people cross that border every day, and more than 300,000 vehicles. So it's there's also more Mexicans coming back to Mexico than going to the U.S. now for at least 2 or 3 years running. So the idea of having an efficient border, a well-controlled border, a properly monitored border has been alive and working strongly. I have here a list of 15 very specific initiatives that are already occurring. The agreement of Homeland Security and underway now for a couple of years. So pointing in the same direction, we all want an efficient border, and we are thinking of strategic, what we call strategic, and obviously a lot to do with custom harmonization. So there are solutions beyond the wall or the fence. There's a clear understanding that we want to make sure that we have an operational, efficient border. Now, in terms of immigration, we will have a very strong stand in terms of things being done in a humane way. The figures have been dropping in terms of how many may not be deported. We shall see. The focus seems to be on anyone who has a criminal record, which sounds perfectly justifiable, as long as things are done in a very humane way. And I think we will be able to work our way through the famous wall discussion. We are aligned in the interest of making sure that both sides are comfortable with what needs to be done. And we'll see as the different appointments occur in the next few weeks, we'll see how much needs to be done beyond what is already underway. Now, NAFTA question. I think it's interesting to mention the fact that three-way trade between Canada, U.S., and Mexico is more than $1 trillion a year. $1 trillion a year. 30 of the 53 states of the United States have Mexico as its number one or two trading partner. More than 6 million jobs in the U.S. are directly attributed to trade with Mexico. There is $250 billion of U.S. investment in Mexico. Mexico buys more than $250 billion from the U.S. every year, and more than 40% value added of products leaving Mexico for other markets incorporate 40% of U.S. value. When we first discussed NAFTA 20 plus years ago, we were dealing with promises. Today, we're dealing with realities. And I think there is a level of integration between the three countries that is extremely important not to ignore. As you know, there is a clause, when the clause was discussed years ago, there's a clause for exit. And that clause is what we called at the time the nuclear solution. The reason being that you could, within 6 months' notice, step out of NAFTA, but it was all or nothing. And the reason for the all or nothing is that you do not want to generate a sort of a trickle-down effect, little by little, of an undoing, but rather make sure that all of those who have invested, who have integrated, who have benefited, were on the line also at the same time. So all that is where we stand right now. I think that as we look at NAFTA, as you look at any document that you reread after 25 years, there are very many clear areas that we can do, improve, modernize, deepen, expand, etc. What was the original agreement? Things related to enforcement, the dispute settlement system can be clearly strengthened. Environment and worker rights clearly strengthened, in fact, already contemplated in the TPP. Everything that has to do with simplification, kind of paperwork that is required to establish the rules of origin is just outrageously slow and deep, and it can be clearly simplified. Things like commerce and energy weren't in the original NAFTA, and e-commerce didn't even exist, are obviously enhancements. So there's plenty of room to discuss constructively a more efficient NAFTA, and we certainly look forward to doing that with the new administrations. I think that what has been heard, what I think would be very sad, is if the TPP effort were to be lost in the byway, because over the last 2 or 3 years, enormous community effort from the countries involved in TPP have gone into place. And I think that momentum, as I understood from the 8th meeting in Lima last 4 days ago, clearly everyone would like to see that momentum be maintained with or without participation at this point of time. So we'll see what happens there. But I think all in all, in the case of North America, it's all about North American competitiveness. I think all three have been able to integrate to such a degree precisely because of that. And we certainly feel that there's room for discussion, constructive discussion with whoever comes into those positions in the next transition. I share the concerns that have been voiced before. Hopefully the rhetoric that occurred during the electoral process changes to a more pragmatic and constructive discussions, but time will tell, and we're ready. Thank you very much.
Mr. Gallardo, thank you. I'm struck again by the very pragmatic tone of your remarks and the willingness to find a way through problems that have been raised mostly on this side of the border.